Welcome to the programme. Let's start with developments in the conflict area of the Gaza Strip and the Israeli government that's threatened to destroy all cross-border tunnels regardless of any possible ceasefire. Israel has also called up more reservists and requested military resupplies from the United States. Israel's Prime Minister held a meeting of his security cabinet and made it clear he's determined that the offensive will continue. And it is continuing. These are live pictures from Gaza. It's day 24 of the offensive, and diplomatic efforts to end have stalled. And the cost of it all is in human lives, and that's still rising. This was the result of an early morning strike on a house in Gaza City. It wounded several Palestinians and left a smoking crater filled with debris. Let's join our diplomatic editor, James Bays. He's in West Jerusalem. There you are, James. Good to see you. Lots of moving development in this story, both in Gaza and in West Jerusalem. Israel's Security Cabinet has finished meeting, I believe. The Prime Minister has spoken to discuss in detail what the Israelis are going to do. Just fill us in on that detail.
At a time when there is a great deal of international criticism of the Israeli military operation, at a time when no lesser figures than the UN Secretary-General and the US President have called for an immediate ceasefire, Benjamin Netanyahu, with his cabinet around him, was uncompromising. He said that the military operation will go on, it will continue, and there will be no ceasefire until they have dealt with this issue of the tunnels and the rockets. He says the military operation will continue. They'll deal with this issue, if necessary through diplomacy, but if necessary too through the military option. He also said in his speech that so far there have been impressive results, as he described it, on the ground. He said, we've neutralised dozens of tunnels which hit thousands of terrorist infrastructures, and we've killed hundreds of terrorists. And so some other important points in this speech. He said this is the first step in demilitarising Gaza. And flanking him, his senior officials and senior ministers, including the Defence Minister Moshe Ya'alon, he said the damage inflicted by Hamas by Israel is unprecedented.
Well, just wait a moment there, James. Let's just listen in to what the Prime Minister had to say just a short while ago.
I won't agree to any suggestion, with or without a ceasefire, that won't allow the Israeli army to finish this important operation for the security of Israel's citizens.
Of course, the Prime Minister very determined, and of course, as you say, it comes off the back, James, of military hardware now confirmed going towards Israel from the United States. This isn't a new development. There is a long-standing agreement between the two countries, so should we be surprised by this?
We shouldn't be surprised, but I think there's a great deal of international criticism coming just hours after that attack on the UN school that the UN said was definitely carried out by the Israelis. But yes, as part of this treaty between the US and Israel, they are sending more military hardware. I think it's worth reminding our viewers that $121 billion of military aid has been given by the US to Israel since 1945, and those are the actual figures. If you actually adjusted it for inflation, some of those historical figures, it would be much higher than that. There is a symbiosis between the US military infrastructure and the Israeli one. Yes, the US sends all sorts of things to Israel, like Apache helicopters. There are Israeli variants of F-15s, F-16 strike aircraft. But also Israel exports to the US, and sometimes the US sends military hardware to Israel, which Israel uses on the ground, modifies, and then sends back to the United States.
And of course, James, you've had time to assess how certainly the Israeli public have been watching events unfold in Gaza this last 24 hours, the attack on the UN facility, as you've said. How have the media portrayed this? And is there any change in public perception as to how the Israeli government is dealing with this? Are they still fully behind what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing?
Well, I think when Benjamin Netanyahu speaks at that Israeli cabinet meeting, he has several audiences in mind. One, clearly, is the international community, who've been very critical in some cases of his actions. Some ambassadors have even been recalled from Tel Aviv because of the brutality, as they see it, of the Israeli operation. But I think the more important audience for an Israeli prime minister at a time of war is the domestic audience. He's already, and his close officials and ministers, set pretty high expectations for the Israeli public. And they, having seen what's being written in the Israeli media, I think, do have those high expectations that the tunnels can be destroyed, the rockets can be stopped, and I think they're even being led to believe that Hamas can be destroyed. Many analysts, I think, would not believe that's possible, but certainly high expectations from the Israeli public, and Benjamin Netanyahu, as a result of that, says the operation continues for now.
Indeed, we'll see what certainly the fallout is as the day progresses. For the moment, James, thank you for joining us.